Inspiration is from Wilfrid Sellers, from the two pictures of the world, and then I will try to explain something about Aristotle and the types of causes in this one picture of this world, then this form and information, and then to compare the ancient form of scientific contemporary concept with this contemporary concept of information with David Chalmers, and then something say about the philosophy of information. In the conclusion, the informational turn, what is the title of this subject. So the manifest image, we have, Sarah said that we have two images of the world. The manifest image is to understand the world, how we are understanding it in a common sense. So this is in this world, is a person, this person has feelings, free will, he works, makes this or another action, and this is the concept where Sarah said is found by Aristotle, Edward Moore, or Peter Strawson. If you're familiar with this work of Peter Strawson, Individua, that is the first category in this work. And this work is the human person. So this person is as a basic category. And the methodology in this manifest image is the observation, and then this correlation induction, what we have to put everything, if we are going to do this, into the syllogism, because it is the most important kind of argumentation for Aristotle. The scientific image is the understanding of the world as it is risen to the new techniques of inquiry and through the early modern evolution of science, where we are speaking about Descartes and his new method, how to try to develop a philosophical thinking, but also a science, because he was also a scientist, mathematician. Galileo, with his mathematical models of the universe. Hume, who said that we do not have such as a substantial kind of person, we have only a bundle of different kind of perception or something similar. And the difference between this manifest image and the scientific image is, first of all, in methodology. The scientific image uses postulated imperceptible entities as elements of its theories, as a category. So we do not have that are postulated theoretical entities, and the entities are making the basis of this ontology for this scientific work. And this is the second one, is the precise definitions. We should make really very precise definitions, as you know perhaps from Frege. This is from his work that where he said we should make everything as precise as possible. This is the second point. The possible multiplicity in manifest image and the actual multiplicity of scientific images. Of course, we have the philosophical tradition, and folk anthropology is very considerable culturally. There is no reason to suppose the manifest is a globally unified phenomenon. So this is, we know that the manifest images are different, depends also on culture. We have heard here about the Chinese, about the Tibetan or Indian culture also. There are also some kind of manifest images. Also, at least until the unification of science, if it will be something like a unified science, we are looking for such kind of science, to have one science for every kind of explanation. The scientific image come in as many varieties as the sciences, where everybody is the question, what are the images? The images is something similar to the Kantian regular ideas, like God, like world, like something. It's are metaphors. We should see this as a metaphor. It is not really a very good definition, but we should begin on one point. The manifest image, the person there, because we will be speaking about more or less about the person, the kind of information, is the self, and the self is a core of its life. In common parlance, the mind. This is also the soul in Aristotle, represented as human being ability for rational activity. And this is very important in this picture of the world, the normativity, for example, the language. And this is every time the question, the normative language, ethics, law, how to translate the normative language into the descriptive language in the scientific world, where you have to something that you should something to do. And there is also the next difference between causes and reasons. Causes, more or less, are in the scientific image of the world. We are looking for the causes of this or other events, and the reasons, motivation, and so on, are more or less the argumentation in this manifest world, where we have this. And they did what Seller said, there should be a stereoscopic vision of the world, that we should put it in any kind together. There are some ways. First of all, we say the real world is the manifest world. Another one is only postulated, we don't know what it is. The another method is to see the scientific world as the real world. This manifest world is really an epiphenomenon. And then Seller said we should put it together to find some another kind of thinking world. And my focus is to show how the conflicts can be resolved. And if the scientific image wins, we'll need a bit of the manifest to explain what it is makes us as a person so unique. Seller said the solution will be to change the ontology, because we have in this manifest image the ontology, the person, as a category, as first category for Aristotle coming, for example, substantial. And in the scientific image, we have these theoretical entities. And Seller says this is impossible to put it together, so we should make a process ontology. I will not go into this. I will try to find the solution with this concept of information. So this is the one. Well, I'm doing cognitive science. Cognitive science, as you know, this is an interdisciplinary science, and we have philosophy, neurosciences, linguistics, cognitive psychology, computer science, artificial intelligence, and all of this we are trying to find a new methodology to put these both images of the world together, because we will not lose the categories in the manifest world. So this is what I'm trying to, there are a lot of definitions of cognitive science. This is one of these. Why I choose Aristotle? Seller said Aristotle as an example of a philosopher of this manifest image. Why I choose Aristotle? Because Aristotle is very important for our culture, for European culture, for our kind of thinking, kind of argumentation, for our logic, biology, science. So this is because I will speak a little bit about Aristotle. And this is, we had here today, Professor Krutsky spoke about this subject, about Aristotle. So I will say this only very shortly, since we think that we understood something when we know its explanation. It's very important for Aristotle not only to describe, but also to give an explanation, to answer the question why it is in this way or another way. And there is 4 sorts of explanation. One, what it is to be something. One, that if certain items hold, it is necessary for it is to hold. Another, what initiated the change. And fourth, the purpose. All of them are provided through the middle term, because with this kind of argumentation we can put into this syllogism structure. So we request to know, according to Aristotle, the essence, the suchness, the necessary conditions, the efficient cause, and the purpose. In this sense, Aristotle's causes are often better thought as explanation or reasons. So we have this here, it could be changeable, the two words. In his metaphysics, Aristotle refers back to an artist or a craftsman working to describe 4 types of causation that are at the basis of the natural of the manifest world. Of course, today, in this modern sciences, in the scientific picture of the world, first of all, what we are looking for is the efficient causation. The another one is a little, the theological causation is, we have heard about this today, is put away. The another kind of causation there is not so very clear, but this efficient causation, this is what we are trying to see in this modern scientific world, when there is a kind of really sometimes very strong reductionism. But to reduce everything to this kind of, or to this kind of explanation. The Aristotelian concept of form, a cause, which is not itself a material part of the body, but is active in its development and determines its principal features. Form relates, in fact, to the modern concept of information. I say relates. It is we should have a lot to say about this, but anyway, we could do this in this way. I will explain it in several minutes. As something that is transmitted across generation. The theological perspective of Aristotelian physics versus the mechanic character of Cartesian and Newtonian physics. This is the beginning of another world. So the Aristotelian one is cosmos, something, as a whole, and then you have a special kind of, as you read the Cartesian on methods, you see how we should go to receive really a good explanation. So this is this mechanical art of explanation, or then later physics of Newton. Present day biologist and the final causation, as I saw, final causation today is not so a recipe in biology. Aristotle as a biologist, the inherent theory of females like males cooperate in delivering actual material to the fetus. So this is from his work about the biology. The transmission of inheritance, as Aristotle apprehended it, was intrinsically the transmission of information. Motion he sets up. Information was then used to build an organism from the ground up. Messages graves material body. So this is this information here. This is the question, a lot of questions, but I will say only one. But if the inheritance was transmitted as information, then how was this that information encrypted? What was the crypt of inheritance? How was the informational material bundled and transported from one human body to the next? And there are also another questions, but this is not the first point here. To answer this question, Aristotle distinguished between final and variable features. Final features were those essential to an animal species, and this is this final causation. This final causation is going to make this organism. And then is a variable features consistent of qualities that develop rather than being naturally endowed. Form and information, this is a two concepts that select the same referent. A fundamental principle of organization that links conscious mind to matter. We could say here is a little bit so middle-aged Thomas Aquinas interpretation of the Aristotelian concept of form and matter. Both principles cause the unity of an individual being, informatio materia, in the sense listed by the Oxford, if we try to explain it in the modern language, Oxford English Dictionary, information is the action of informing with some active or essential quality. Distinguish between the biological process that brings a new life into the world, per modum informationis, or a non-biological process that brings something to life, per modum creationis. We can create something more, and then this internal is this going per this modum informationis. Accordingly, information is something that emerges from and represents an action on the underlying material, namely action of its formation. Aristotle, information is in a biological system is regarded as an additional constraint on a theory of emergent acting subject. Here I'm not going to speak about the theory of emergence, but to solve the body-mind problem. We have such theories, dualism, reductionism, and we have something in the middle. So like emergentism, supervenience theories, parallelism, a lot of them. The emergence theory is I think, is good for this, how to put together both of the pictures of the world, or images, because you have there so something like a downward causation. So it means that our feeling, our will, and everything has a causal, could have a causal influence on this material world, what it emerges from. So it means, for example, to make as a model of thinking about this downward causation, could it be this formal causation of Aristotle? It could help us to understand what we mean about the upward or downward causation. It's produced the person, the self, because we are speaking about the self and how to put it together, because there is no huge problem to find a stereoscopic view of the two worlds if we put away the person. In the material world, it is easier to make a kind of how to combine both of these worlds. But we are speaking about the person. The produce is generated by the hierarchically organized biological system, holds causal powers, counts as a fundamental entity in its own right. We spoke about this ontology. And Aristotle, what is ensouled is distinguished from what is not ensouled by living. So this is the one of the most important differences in works of Aristotle. We are trying to put to this manifest image, and where I chose Dave Chalmers, well-known philosopher, contemporary philosopher, this naturalistic dualism his book about the mind. This is this kind of solution there is, so if the principle of organizational invariance is to hold, then we need to find some fundamental organizational property for experience to be linked to, and information is an organizational property par excellence. So he sees the information, where of course every time we should make a good definition about information. But I will say here we could do this in kind of perhaps Shannon and take this as a syntactical, semantical, and pragmatical information. So pragmatical information will be the information where we put also the context on all of this. It's very difficult to make an operalization of this pragmatical kind of information, but it is what we are speaking here about. Chalmers names his philosophical view as a naturalistic dualism of consciousness. But information, if not material, is embodied in the material entities. In the end, information is a kind of feature of the material object. According to Chalmers, the fundamental theory of consciousness. So the fundamental theory of consciousness, we are looking for this theory. We do not have this theory now. But this will be the theory where we put together this, in my language, the manifest and the scientific image should be grounded on information. So not like Sellers said in the philosophy of processes, but on the philosophy of information. Well, the Chalmers is a panpsychist. We have here today a little bit about panpsychism, and I'm not so familiar and not so. I have nothing against this panpsychism, but the question there is how to put together with these elements such thing what we are saying about our conscious mind and about our pragmatic kind of information. So this is, let it be, but the fundamental theory of consciousness. Physical realization is the most common way to think about information embedded in the world, but it is not the way, but not the only way information can be found. We can also find information realized in our phenomenology. So this is this point. It's not only, he's looking not only for the physical kind of information, for this syntactical or perhaps kind of semantical, but also for this phenomenology. So it means that for him, it's for example, we could make one ontology. We could ontologically we can reduce the manifest image into the scientific image, but epistemologically it's impossible. So we cannot reduce, for example, psychology to neurology. Okay, this is this difference. And this is phenomenology. Status of experiences fall directly into information spaces in a natural way. This is this conscious mind, very famous, his very famous book. a lot of commenters about this book. Information, the Chalmers, to make a short summary. Information has a dual aspect. It is nor matter nor energy. It requires matter to be embedded transitional in the brain, and it requires energy to be brought forward. In phenomenal experiences that passes to us as example, visual sensations consist of information that is, among others, a kind of radiant energy. This is what Chalmers tried to explain. The poor mental information content being in one brain can pass it to the another brain, because it's also every time a kind of a question about the communication, because we are not alone in the world, and we need to have a language. Language is an institution. Language is a social institution. Communication is going to the language. If we are speaking about the pragmatical kind of information, this is also a culture. This is also a context. Can pass it from one brain to another, but converting it into energy for the purpose of communication. Other brains can then include the same information, possibly with significant differences in some items for use by other minds. Of course, we are here confronted with this huge problem. So if we put very strong the subjectivity, the individuality of the person, then it's very difficult to make a science. So what we are trying to do is to find some kind of universalization, to find a kind of operalization, when we could speak then about the methodological point of view, what I spoke at the beginning. So this is Hilary Putnam. His functionalism is perhaps known. So stereoscopic, this point of view, a kind of short summary. Aristotle Aquinian point of view of formal causation and Chalmers' view of information presents the insight on how conscious agent or conscious soul might have a special kind of causal influence in relation to the material world. Information implicitly drops a hint that there is something outside. What's more, it requires something outside of a conscious person. So this is information is with this social surrounding. The philosophy of information. This is very new subject in my opinion. Well, there are a lot of books about this, but this is a new intellectual issues emerging from the world of information. It is the philosophy of information. Philosophy of information deals with the philosophical analysis of the notion of information from both points. A historical point, so I tried to explain something about Aristotle, Chalmers, Shannon, and a systematic perspective, the scientific one. So this is another point. And new areas of philosophical researches and seeking out new research methodologies. So this is the stereoscopic point of view should be what we are looking for, the new philosophy of consciousness or for the new methodology. Perhaps it's worth to mention that it's very high price to pay that we could put together our subjectivity, our personal point of view, to be a person, to be an agent, because we should change all of this, what we are speaking about the material world. So this is very high price. This is perhaps it will be possible, or perhaps it will be not possible. I'm not here a mysterian like Colin McGean, who said never you will do this. It's totally different. I try to find a way how to put it together to speak about our neurological entities and about our consciousness. The DB, philosophy of information, as a new philosophical field concerned with the critical investigation of the conceptual nature and basis principle of information, including its dynamics, utilization, and science. And the second point, perhaps, with the philosophy, the elaboration and application of information theoretic and computational methodologies to philosophical problems. we could also receive a new point of view of our old philosophical problems if we are coming back yet now for the scientific image to this manifest image. Okay, this is a way of going to both of these directions. Could we say that the philosophy of information is a major discipline? This is the question, and this is a huge discussion. But such questions could help us to answer this. Those it represent an autonomous field of research, provides an innovative approach to both traditional and new philosophical topics. If yes, then it is a new kind. Complements other branches of philosophy by offering a systematic treatment of the conceptual foundation of the world of information and the information society. Should we consider the philosophy of information in analytical, empirical, or the metaphysical way? This was also a question here. I will say we should try to do this analytical, empirical. Of course, there's another point is how to understand metaphysics now. Where is this Aristotelian one? It is, but we know there are a lot of theoretical metaphysics today, and perhaps the metaphysics could be a kind of these regulative ideas of Kant that could help us to make a framework where we could work on this analytical, empirical way to solve this problem. So what kind of philosophy of information is to be expected? To answer this question, we must, on the one hand, strive with a clearer view of the philosophy of information as it is related to the history of human thought, this manifest image, I will say, and on the other hand, keep track to developments in modern sciences, scientific image. Of course, we are living in both of these images today. It's not so that we are living in the scientific image. We are living in both of these images, and this is the question, how to put it so a bit more together. The beginning of the scientific image, that we could speak about several turns, because I spoke about the informational turns. The scientific turns brought about by the scientists and philosophers in the 17th century. I spoke about this. This is the attention to the mathematization of the law of nature and the perceptual laws distinct to the subject. So this was this different. The Cartesian philosophical turn of what time involved a transition away from the nature of the object of Aristotelian knowledge and towards to focus on the epistemic relationship between the object and the knowing subject. So this is this subjective in the philosophy. It has to shift from metaphysics to epistemology. Perhaps the solution will be not, because today the trends are to showing only the epistemology, and the metaphysics is in the second place. The growth of the information society that can be observed today is connected with the emergence of there are two words I put it, but anyway it's not so perhaps important, cyberspace and biospheres. Professor Tadeuszewicz knows a little more about this, but it is perhaps only for us. Well, anyway, information has become, I will say that the philosophy of information has become another basic concept, just as being, knowledge, life, meaning, consciousness, and good and evil. So the information is find place in the philosophy together with this concept. All of these are central concepts standing in relations of interdependency with the notion of information, which, therefore, in its own right demands to be independently studied and investigated. It is a kind of answer to my questions, what I put several minutes before. We should thus accept that there is, in fact, a more basic concept than that of knowledge, which is what philosophers have focused on up to now, and that is information. This is this concept. The information streams operates in a more basic level than the acquisition and transmission of knowledge. This type of approach requires more far-reaching research and this interdisciplinary kind. Because of this, I spoke about this cognitive science. and differs significantly from the methods of traditional philosophical and scientific ontology and epistemology. Because of this, I'm speaking about the integrated information. The philosophy of integrated information accounts for several aspects of the relationship between the manifest and the scientific image of the person and of the world of consciousness and the world of the brain. It starts from the essential properties of the manifest world, phenomenal experiences from which it derives, and requirements for the physical substrate of the consciousness. So we could say that in this way, the manifest image is epistemologically first, because the concepts are coming from this world, but ontologically, the scientific image perhaps today is the first place, because we will say, okay, the most important ontological categories are coming from the scientific image of the world. And we are looking for the stereoscopic view that we should find some another kind of ontological entities. This is perhaps quite the same. This is like to be biography. Welcome to Krakow. You know this. Do you know this also? And you know this also. You know this also. And thank you for your attention.